to don't miss notes. So
Mhm.
everything is always front loaded. If we don't miss the note, we're okay, we're accurate. Well, that definition, accuracy, changes over time based on our development and our ability level and our ability to be able to comprehend more information. So I would release notes in Mozart with a sense of elegance, or with
Mhm.
Brahms with a sense of elegance. If I'm releasing notes, if I'm playing a Duke Ellington tune, I'll probably do a lot of slap tongue, stop tongue stuff because that's the characteristic of the music. A lot of like really heavy punches on notes that you just normally wouldn't do in classical
Mhm.
type of music setting.
Where where does commercial and studio recording fit in there? Would you say it's like kind of a meeting of the in between of dependent on the score?
It really depends upon the character of the music, but 90% of the time, when I was doing big film scores, and I have to say that I feel very blessed to have been in probably what I would have considered the golden age of film scoring. Um, I was lucky enough to be able to work with Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams, James Newton Howard, Lalo Schifrin, et cetera, while at the same time, having been able to play on final scores of people like Miklos Rosa and Alex North and John Barry, and now Michael Giacchino and everybody that's doing it now. Um, I would most everything was orchestral based. Most everything
Mhm.
was no different than what I would do if I was on a live stage. I
Yeah,
think that's
like
also
Star Trek, for example, is very
right, right. Absolutely orchestrally based. And
versus maybe like The Incredibles. I'm sure The Incredibles was a very different approach.
well, it was. I mean, we just played with more edge and like had more fun, trying to count that blasted end credits like correctly and just stay on top of it. Yeah, there's a little bit of a different approach, but the element of production,
That's always
actual
the same.
air development and breathing and so on, that never changes.
Okay. Yeah, so keeping this element of production and air and sound in all of the context, but changing some of your other output.
The
The
nuance.
example you gave as articulation, or I'm sure as like other things that you could fit in there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about
Really cool.
understanding colors and understanding. It's no different in classical music. I mean, if you're going to play a Bruckner symphony the same way that you're going to play a Mozart symphony, you're not really paying attention.
Yeah. So you have just designed a new mouthpiece with Legacy Horn Experience. And can you talk about how that project fits into this idea of color and sound production and approach, and maybe what you were thinking about as you picked the specific elements of the mouthpiece?
Well, I think that what I was looking for was I think first of all with mouthpieces there's only so many different ways that you can reinvent the wheel. It has a rim, it has a cup, it has a bore, and it has, it has an opening in the back for air to get into the horn. I mean, so it's really just a matter of trying to find a good balance of, first of all, with the rim. It's like I'm a big believer that the rim should be something that you should never have to think about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like trying on a piece of clothing that actually just fits. You don't have to try and make it fit. It just fits. When you put a rim to your lips, you know if it's right for you. It just because you don't notice it. At least that's my belief. I've always tried to play equipment that I don't really notice because if I'm doing that, then what I'm doing is I'm working now not with the mouthpiece, but the mouthpiece is now an extension of
Mm-hmm. Of you.
me, and it's just allowing me to do what it is that I like to do and or need to do. And so I wanted to create a mouthpiece that it was going to actually fit for the player that understands that air is important and that if you actually develop your air really well, you can play any style, and this mouthpiece will allow you to do that. It's not particularly big. I know that I'm extremely aware of the shift over many years to much smaller equipment, much smaller mouthpieces, much smaller bore sizes, and so on and so forth. And, I have no issues with any of that. What I try to do with my equipment is I'm a big believer when anybody talks about the horn, when you talk about the horn to anybody who's not a horn player, anybody who's not a musician, they say, what do you do? Well, I play the horn. Well, I love the sound of the horn. That's what we hear more than anything.
Hmm.
The horn, yeah, I know that sound. That's a beautiful sound. And so for me, sound has always been the primary element of how I play and how I teach. Um, if the air isn't developed well enough, nothing else that you do on the instrument is going to be as complete as it would be if you developed your air and played long tones and played repeated attacks to try to get to the core resonance of every single note. So I wanted to have a mouthpiece line that actually really reflects that. It's not a big mouthpiece, it's not a small mouthpiece, but it's a mouthpiece that I think reflects what the core resonance of a horn should sound like, at least from my ear.
Hmm.
And that's really all it is.
That sounds like something that would be easy to approach for everyone. A mouthpiece that can help any horn player use ease and comfort to achieve their desired sound.
Exactly. Again, it goes to the principle of developing your air well, as completely as possible. I've been playing the horn actually for 61 years, and I've been teaching for pretty much 4 decades. And there hasn't been a single player that I've ever taught that hasn't benefited from the idea that paying more attention to the quality of your air would make you a better player.
So
I
I,
hope I
I feel
said
like
that right.
I have what?
I said, I hope I said that right. I hope I just didn't do a double negative. Anyway, it's if you develop this, everything you do is going to be better because what you're really doing is you're building a stronger foundation to your house. And then you can build whatever you want on it. And this mouthpiece allows you to get to that place very easily.
I want to take a quick sidebar because I think that I have a decent understanding of what it means to have a complete sound and complete air. But if I'm a middle schooler, maybe listening to this, or someone new to the French horn, how can I conceptualize that? What's another way that I can approach that if I don't already know what it means?
I think in middle school and high school, it's everything is a best effort clause, right? The best thing that you can do as a middle schooler or an early high school, player and so on and so forth is just try to sound as beautiful as you can. That's it. Don't try to overanalyze anything. Just try to play with as beautiful a sound as you can. And that was something that was always the mantra of Mr. DeRosa. He would always say, play the simplest things beautifully. That means like just play a half note beautifully, play a whole note beautifully.
Make
Um,
every sound that comes out of your bell, regardless of its importance, equally important.
exactly, exactly. The book that all of my students have to own is called Carved in Stone, which is basically it's the book about Vince DeRosa's life, career, and teaching and playing concepts. I believe it's the most important book about horn playing since the Farkas book. Um, and it
I'm
is
unfamiliar with this book, so I'm going to have to get my hands on a copy.
Oh, it's written by Todd Miller. It's a great book, and you're learning about the history of the most recorded horn player in history, and probably considered by many, including Dennis Brain, to be the greatest horn player that's ever lived. And we teach a lot out of that book, and it just starts with breathing, and it starts with playing long tones, and as a middle schooler, just try to play beautifully. Just try to make a beautiful sound. Just listen to yourself. I remember when I was a middle schooler and played, I would play with my arm hanging over the bell and not even putting my hand in the bell and doing all those crazy things that young people do. And that's fine. It's part of like the learning process. But just think about and try to play with beauty. That's all. And out of that, the more you play, the more you can comprehend as you get older, the more deeply into particulars we can get.
Excellent. In the interest of time, I want to move on to our last question, which is what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh boy. I don't think I can whittle it down to one thing. Can I mention a couple?
Yes.
Okay. First was from my old teacher before Vince DeRosa, Waldemar Linder, who was principal horn in the Minneapolis Symphony in the 50s and into the 40s, 50s, into the 60s, then moved to Los Angeles. He just basically told me to just always enjoy when I'm playing the instrument. And as a middle schooler and a high schooler, kind of like high school particularly, that was really important for me to just remember that this should be fun because we do this because we love it.
Yep.
And if we allow ourselves to get too serious about it, it can really, I think, mess up the works. So, always try to enjoy it and have as much fun as you can. That was really helpful. Um, with Mr. DeRosa, it was, develop your sound, get deep into the horn and get a complete sound. If you can do that, then you will be able to create colors because you'll have more colors on your palette to be able to do things with. And boy, was he right. I mean, there's nothing I love more than than an incredible Hollywood sound sweeping line in a Rachmaninoff symphony. There's very few things that I like as little as a laser beam sound that cuts through in a Rachmaninoff symphony, right?
Yes.
And then the other thing, the last one was from Gunther Schuller, who was my mentor. And basically, he really taught me about how to study music, how to like if I'm working on Till Eulenspiegel, you better know what Strauss is asking you to do because it's really clear right there. And he would take me through because I studied with him when I was a student at Tanglewood when he still ran the Berkshire Music Center. I actually now own his horn and
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to play his horn in 2 weeks. They're doing a centennial concert in his honor. It will have been the 100th birthday, and so they're doing a big concert in Boston. I'm going to go play part of the Brahms trio. Um, but it was just always about the attention to detail in music, the attention to what the composer wrote, and I have carried that with me the rest of my life. In regarding not just classical music, but also the jazz playing that
Mm-hmm.
I've done and really like paying attention to what makes Mozart Mozart, what makes Schubert Schubert, what's make Thelonious Monk, what et cetera, et cetera.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for all of the other fantastic information that you shared this morning. I found it really helpful and insightful, and I'm sure that a lot of our listeners will as well. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. And please try out the mouthpieces. I think you'll like them. And if you like what you've heard during this video, the Frost School of Music at the University of Miami, that's where I reside, and that's where I would love to work with you.